Do you ever feel like an imposter or like a black sheep that's just waiting to get caught because you are convinced that you are not a good fit for perhaps a department or a particular job? Like you don't have the experience that you think you're supposed to have or that your peers have. Or maybe it's just as simple as the moms down at the elementary school, and they have set this really high standard for what you think it's like to be in this group of moms, and you just don't have what it takes to be included. Well, this is often called imposter syndrome, and it is definitely something that I experienced throughout my life. In fact, I'm convinced that I just was like an imposter syndrome of life. I was always convinced that everybody else had it figured out or knew what to do, and I was just somehow missing the manual. Today, we are going to dive in more to where imposter syndrome comes from, why it doesn't actually exist, and more importantly, how to overcome those feelings if you are struggling with them yourself. So let's dive in. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Leigh Gall. I am a speaker and a coach dedicated to helping people get out of their heads and into their lives. A lot of us have inner critics that are very loud and can often get in the way of things that we would like to achieve. So I help teams and individuals learn how to reframe their mindset so that they can go out and accomplish the things that they actually want to do in life and not listen to these negative thoughts inside their head. What is imposter syndrome at its core? Point blank, it is when an individual assigns another person or a group a value of something that they want and they don't feel like they have. There's a discrepancy there. So it's very common in workplaces when someone gets promoted and they don't feel like they have the experience or the qualifications to do the job. And so then they work extra hard to try to prove themselves. Even though there's a natural learning curve, we tend to overdo it. But it can also be in situations where we are simply assigning value to someone else or a group of people based on perception. So because this person shows up and talks in a certain way, they must have it together. Or because they drive a certain car, they must have money that I don't have. And so often we can actually be assigning value to another person or another group without any actual context of knowing if they have those things or they don't. Unfortunately, I have to share that high achievers actually suffer the most from imposter syndrome. And it feels a bit ironic because you would think, given their accomplishments, they would see the value and not feel this compulsion to constantly prove themselves to fit in. But unfortunately, their inner critics tend to be very loud and push them to achieve and strive for perfection or to fit in. And it almost kind of feels like someone keeps moving the finish line for them. There's never that reward of accomplishing the thing. But I am really here to help everybody be able to reframe how they see imposter syndrome and how they see themselves in whatever the situation is. And the most liberating thing I can share is that while imposter syndrome technically exists, being an imposter does not, because there are 8 billion people on this planet and there are 8 billion different versions of what a person looks like and what gifts they bring. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true that at no point can you ever replicate what another person does, because based on pure DNA, we're all different. And if we can accept that, then we are able to then own our authenticity and see what we can bring to a situation. Quick reminder, if you guys are enjoying this video, please be sure to hit like and that subscribe button so that you won't miss any of the other videos I put out. And on that note, I'm going to tell you a quick little story because I think it really makes the point. So many years ago, I was in a position at a brewery and they came to me and they said, Leigh, we'd like to make you our vice president of sales. And instead of, there was some excitement. Don't get me wrong. I was excited. And then immediately the dread set in and I was hit with this, oh, you can't do that. They don't know that you can't do that. And meanwhile, they had seen me in my current job. They saw how I showed up to work and how I showed up to life. And they were like, we want her to do that. So that's where their decision came from. But meanwhile, in my head, I'm over here telling myself that I don't have what it takes. And one of the biggest reasons why that is because all of my context for what that role had been was someone else. Not only was it someone else that was definitely not me, but it was when I was in my 20s and they were this older man who had this very stern kind of bold presence, and I thought I had to go be him. But I couldn't. I biologically could not be him because I wasn't him. But let's look at the very obvious. He's a man and I'm a woman. And when you start to kind of identify the differences in yourself and others, that's the true spark. That's the magic, because it's not that I had to go be this man, because I can tell you the people that offered me this position don't know who the hell this person is. So why am I letting this person hang out in my brain and prevent me from going out and being the best vice president of sales I can be? But also the fact is that I bring my own strengths. I inherently show up different and I can offer that role what I do. But instead, all I could do was fixate on what I didn't have from that other man. And all I could think about was what I lacked and how I was letting these people down because I wasn't him. But they didn't want him. They wanted me. And so often we become so fixated on who we are striving to be included with or who we are trying to become that we negate who we are. And that can happen because sometimes you don't see people that look like you in those roles. So inclusion can very much prompt some of these feelings, but inherently it's just when you identify that someone else has something that you want or you want to accomplish, and all you do is find your deficiencies, that you are going to only ever see the deficiencies. And what you have to do is reframe the way you see yourself and what you bring to that role, and know that there are 8 billion different versions out there, and all you can ever do is be you. Literally, there's no other alternative, because even you striving to be someone else is still just you pretending to be someone else. So I'm here to hopefully help liberate you from some of these chains that you might be wearing as you strive to become the idea of something that you think you are supposed to be, and rather own who you are. Here are some tips for you if you are battling imposter syndrome. First, I would like to go ahead and do away with the term fake it until you make it. I have recently decided that that is awful because literally you're saying the word fake it, implying that you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's just not true. So we are now going to be using the term show up until you level up. And that is because you just need to show up. Just show up and be you, and eventually you will level up to the more advanced version of yourself. So we're doing away with fake it until you make it. And then next, I want you to always be able to really check in with yourself because, again, you can only be you. So it's a great place to start. And what I mean by that is really identifying your values and what is it that you are actually wanting from the situation. Because sometimes we will find ourselves mindlessly following a group or an individual because they look flashy or shiny, only to actually take a moment and realize that you don't want what they have, or that who they are doesn't align with who you are authentically. So being able to identify those differences and check in with yourself is very, very important. And then what I was saying earlier is to lean into your authenticity. And that can be difficult. I understand. So to start, I would like you to identify your strengths because we all have them. And you might be blocking them in some cases, but I encourage you to do a little digging and figure out what it is that you do well. And it could be something as simple as math. Like, I'm really good at math and I can bring my math skills to this situation. Or I'm kind and I'm always concerned about people and checking in. And so therefore I make a good team member. Or I'm motivating and I inspire people to do their best work. I might be bad at math, but I'm very motivating. So really do some digging and figure out what your strengths are and get those written down. I hope you enjoyed doing a little digging into imposter syndrome today. This is part of a series on when negative thoughts disguise themselves as positive ones. So I have another video on control. So I hope you guys head over there and watch that if you haven't. And coming up next is perfectionism. That one hits. That one's going to be fun. And just to remind you guys, my name is Leigh Gall. I am a speaker and a coach helping teams and individuals get out of their head and into their life because we all need to fire that inner critic that tells us that we can't do stuff. If you would like to work with me, head over to leighgall.com and you can book an appointment and we can figure out how I can help you or your team. Also, if you liked this video, then go ahead and hit the like button and be sure to hit subscribe so that you can catch all my other videos and we can go on this journey together. I appreciate you watching.